Welcome to Yellowstone. It's a vast ecosystem, spanning over 2 million acres of boiling geysers, rugged peaks, and wild animals. On a Friday, a man and his companion were walking along the campground's paved perimeter road. Nearby, a bull bison was resting in the brush. They initially stopped to record a quick video on their phones, but the moment the animal stood up, the visitors recognized the danger, put their devices away, and began to back away. The grandfather turned to his companion and said, "We're out of here, let's go." It was a rational, rule-abiding response. Recognize an agitated animal and remove yourself from the hazard. Mike McLeod, a wildlife biologist observing from a nearby campsite, watched the situation unfold. He noted the couple performed a textbook retreat, following safety guidelines to avoid a confrontation. They had followed the safety rules exactly. But as the bull bison focused its attention on them, the distance they had worked to maintain was already failing to protect them. The catalyst for the attack had nothing to do with the fleeing couple. A white pickup truck drove past on the adjacent road, and the sudden noise and motion redirected the bison's attention. The timing of the encounter was critical. The event occurred at the onset of bison breeding season, a period known as the rut. During the rut, male bison experience massive surges of testosterone. They compete with one another for dominance, leaving them agitated, territorial, and highly aggressive. To a bull in this hormonal state, a white pickup truck is a territorial intruder. Its sudden movement and loud noise triggered a fight response that would normally be directed at a rival male. A piece of everyday human infrastructure had inadvertently ignited a biological powder keg. Because the grandfather was in the bull's line of sight when it snapped, he was caught in the middle of a defensive chain reaction. The bison charged. The man sprinted off the path, ducking behind a cluster of pine trees to put physical barriers between himself and the animal. This chart compares running speeds, showing why safety buffers vanish in seconds. A human reaches 12 miles per hour, but a bison hits 35. Add mass, and the mismatch is extreme. 2,000 pounds of muscle moving at highway speeds. The victim tried to use the tree trunks as a shield, but the bison simply banked around the timber, completed a second loop, and easily overtook the fleeing man. The bison hooked the victim and, with a single flick of its neck, launched the man 8 feet into the air. The man hit the ground and lay incapacitated. Seeing this, McLeod and a group of bystanders charged toward the animal, screaming and waving their arms to successfully haze the bull away. The physics of the impact are simple. A 2,000-pound animal moving at 35 miles per hour generates a level of momentum that natural obstacles like pine trees cannot mitigate. Emergency vehicles arrived within 10 minutes. The man survived the impact, but he required surgery and a stay in hospital to recover from his injuries. This was not an isolated event. It was already the second documented bison attack in Yellowstone that year. We often treat national parks like curated museums. Paved roads and wooden boardwalks create an expectation that these spaces are heavily managed environments designed for our safety. But as a biologist, McLeod points out that people visit these places specifically for the thrill of the wild. That wildness comes with an inherent and uncontrollable level of risk. This victim followed every guideline. He did not approach the bison or attempt to take a selfie. But as this attack shows, compliance with human rules cannot override the biological instincts of the animal. Every year, millions of visitors enter these landscapes, walking the same trails and assuming the rules will keep them out of harm's way. If following every safety protocol still leads to a violent attack, we have to ask, does safe tourism actually exist in these environments, or is entering the wild always a roll of the dice?
All right, let's get right into it. Welcome back, everyone, to this high-yield explainer. So you've just watched that absolutely harrowing Yellowstone footage, and rather than just rehashing what happened, we're going to extract the exact advanced vocabulary the narrator used to tell that story. If you're a B2 or C1 English learner, this is exactly how you take your fluency to the next level. We aren't looking at basic grammar today, no way. We are looking at idioms, strong collocations, and the specific connecting phrases that native speakers use to sound incredibly articulate. To make this explainer as efficient as possible, we are going to follow a really clear 4-block structure. We'll start with block 1, setting the scene, then block 2, building tension. After that, block 3, the turn, and finally, block 4, register and signposts. So let's kick things off with block 1, setting the scene. Whenever you're trying to establish the physical environment, the time, or the stakes of a situation, strong collocations are your best friends. These are just words that naturally sound right together to a native ear. The narrator grounds us in nature using two really specific pairings. First, vast ecosystem, which just means a massive interconnected biological network. In the story, we heard it's a vast ecosystem spanning over 2 million acres. But you can transfer this completely. Think of a tech startup, right? You could say, our company operates within a vast ecosystem of software developers. Next, we have rugged peaks, meaning harsh, uneven mountaintops. The quote was, boiling geysers, rugged peaks, and wild animals. In a totally different context, you might say, the hiking expedition was delayed by the rugged peaks of the Andes. I want to explicitly flag both of these expressions as excellent for formal writing or if you're taking your IELTS exams. They instantly signal a very high level of descriptive vocabulary.
Moving from nature to human behavior, let's look at rule abiding. This simply means strictly following the rules. The narrator said it was a rational, rule-abiding response. If you're in a corporate context, you might say, our accounting department is exceptionally rule-abiding. Then we have textbook retreat. Textbook here is being used as an adjective, meaning perfect, or done exactly according to instructions. The story noted the couple performed a textbook retreat. You could absolutely use this in business. For example, the PR firm executed a textbook retreat from the failing ad campaign. Finally, we have the verb unfold, meaning to develop or be revealed over time. We heard Mike McLeod watch the situation unfold. In a project management meeting, you could say, let's wait and see how the market trends unfold this quarter. Now, explicitly flag these three as belonging to a strong professional register. They are absolutely perfect for the office. Moving right along, let's get into block 2, building tension. Once the scene is set, a good storyteller needs to escalate the narrative. Look at how these next terms build a sense of impending danger and create real urgency. Agitated means visibly disturbed, nervous, or angry. The narrator described the animals leaving them agitated, territorial, and highly aggressive. But in a totally different context, like finance, you could say the stock market grew highly agitated following the unexpected interest rate hike. Then there's onset of, which refers to the unpleasant beginning of something. In our story, we heard the event occurred at the onset of bison breeding season. You might use it medically or economically, like the onset of the recession took investors by surprise. And massive surges means huge, sudden increases. The narrator mentioned massive surges of testosterone, but you can easily say the hospital experienced massive surges in emergency admissions over the weekend. Flag these terms as highly formal and academic. They are exactly what examiners and university professors want to see.
Now, this next quote brilliantly illustrates how to use a highly vivid idiom. Ignited a powder keg means to accidentally trigger a highly dangerous or explosive situation. The exact quote was, a piece of everyday human infrastructure had inadvertently ignited a biological powder keg. It's incredibly descriptive. Just imagine office politics. You could say, by criticizing the manager in public, the intern inadvertently ignited a corporate powder keg. Flag this as a dramatic, journalistic register. It's fantastic for making a presentation captivating and keeping people awake, but you should definitely avoid it in a strict, dry scientific research paper. Let's move to these cause and effect collocations and see how they build tension physically. Line of sight simply means the imaginary line between an observer's eye and the target. The quote was, because the grandfather was in the bull's line of sight when it snapped. Transfer this over to retail marketing, and you've got, you must keep the premium products in the customer's direct line of sight. Then we have chain reaction, which is a series of events where each causes the next. We heard he was caught in the middle of a defensive chain reaction. Over in economics, you could say the bank's collapse triggered a chain reaction across global supply chains. Flag these two as highly versatile for absolutely any professional setting. And that brings us to block 3, the turn. This block signals the narrative climax, that moment where the tension breaks and the action suddenly explodes. When action happens fast, native speakers rely heavily on phrasal verbs. Sprinted off means to run away at top speed. Ducking behind means to quickly lower your head or body to hide behind something. And banked around means to make a sharp curved turn around an object. The narrator told us the man sprinted off the path, ducking behind a cluster. The bison simply banked around the timber. You can easily use these in sports, like the striker sprinted off the sideline, ducking behind the defender and banked around the goalpost. Now, haze away is unique. It means to use noise or action to drive off wildlife. Bystanders charge toward the animal to successfully haze the bull away. Airports actually use this all the time. The ground crew used lasers to haze the birds away from the runway. Let's note the register here. The first three are super common spoken descriptive verbs, but haze away is very specialized wildlife or agricultural terminology. So, the crucial point in this climax is how the narrator uses formal verbs to contrast with a fast action, which really highlights the severe consequence of the event. Lay incapacitated means to be rendered completely helpless or unable to function. We heard the man hit the ground and lay incapacitated. Next, cannot mitigate means unable to lessen or reduce the severity of something. The quote was, natural obstacles cannot mitigate. Let's apply these to IT and risk management. Following the cyber attack, our entire server network lay incapacitated. Or, our current firewall cannot mitigate the risk of data theft. I want you to explicitly flag these two phrases as resume-ready, top-tier formal academic vocabulary. If you're doing a job interview for a senior role, dropping these words shows serious command of English. Finally, we have block 4, register and signposts. For our final block, we're zooming out to the metalinguistic level. Register is all about knowing when to use a phrase, because choosing the right level of formality is what makes your speech sound incredibly fluent. On the left, we have the grandfather's highly informal spoken phrase, "We're out of here." It just means we are leaving immediately. If you're with friends at a terrible movie, you'd say, "This is boring, we're out of here." You use this in casual chat. On the right, though, we have the narrator's academic paired adjectives, inherent and uncontrollable, meaning an essential, unmanageable part of something. The narrator said, that wildness comes with an inherent and uncontrollable level of risk. In a university essay, you'd write something like, the new experimental surgery carries an inherent and uncontrollable chance of side effects. Strictly flag these. The left one is for the pub, the right one is for the university essay. Do not mix them up. Let's take a look at structural signposts. These are verbs that basically guide your listener through an argument. Points out that is a fantastic way to introduce an expert opinion or a key fact. We heard, as a biologist, McLeod points out that people visit these places. In a boardroom, you'd say our lead analyst points out that our Q3 earnings are down. Then there's override, which means to use authority to cancel or overrule a process. Human rules cannot override the biological instincts. In business, you could say the board of directors voted to override the CEO's decision. Both of these carry a strong professional register. They are perfect for meetings and debates. To wrap up our vocabulary, we have a brilliant summative idiom, a roll of the dice. It means a risky action or decision with a totally unpredictable outcome. The narrator asked, is entering the wild always a roll of the dice? You can use this anywhere there's risk. For instance, launching a luxury product during an economic downturn is a roll of the dice. Flag this one as conversational, but note that it is completely acceptable and widely used in modern journalism and business writing. Which brings us to the end of our breakdown. The source material asks a heavy question. Despite all our rules and textbook retreats, is entering the wild always a roll of the dice? But more importantly for you, the focused learner, the only way to truly acquire these 22 expressions is to actively use them. So I want you to practice right now. Drop into the comments below and write exactly one completely new sentence using any expression we taught today. Make sure it's a new context. I absolutely can't wait to read what you guys come up with. Keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.